Hello, everyone. So, last time I asked you to prepare a creative self introduction, right? But then we don't have a chance to do so because something occurred. Now, I actually asked you to do it because it is somewhat related to our topic for today, which is the introduction to creative nonfiction. You know what? Telling something about yourself in a creative manner is actually an example of creative nonfiction. For better understanding, let us first define creative and nonfiction separately. Okay, so creative says here that it is relating to or involving the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. So this means if you involve your imagination in producing an artistic work, you're being creative. By using your imagination, it's like taking your audience inside your mind while deeply digging into your memories, letting them feel the emotions you are feeling, letting them see the stories that you wanted to be seen, and then, of course, letting them hear your experiences screaming inside you. While an artistic work can be oral, written, or drawn. Now, let's define nonfiction. So, nonfiction is based on facts, real events, and real people, such as biography or history. So, from the word nonfiction, these are stories that are true to life, that are made up of a real situation, and of course, real people, not an inanimated objects. Okay, so some examples of these are biography and history. That's why I asked you to prepare a brief introduction about yourself since that will fall as an example of autobiography. Okay, so biography is someone else's life story, and autobiography is your own story. And of course, nonfiction doesn't just focus on the present experiences, but also on one's past experiences. That's creative and nonfiction. Now, let's try to define creative nonfiction as one based on their separate definitions. Okay, so creative nonfiction, it says here that creative nonfiction is a genre of writing that uses literary styles and techniques to create factually accurate narratives. It encompasses text about factual events or true stories that are well told. Okay, so the word creative in creative nonfiction doesn't mean you have to be good at making up stories or, let's say, creating creative stories out of nowhere and making things look like it actually happened, even if it's not. Because being creative in creative nonfiction means using literary styles and techniques, but still creating stories that are based on facts or that actually happened. These are just true stories that are creatively told with the help of literary styles and techniques. Now, what is the importance of using literary styles and techniques? Actually, it helps the authors discuss what happens in the story and why it is significant to the work as a whole. These styles contribute to the meaning of the story being told. Okay, so one of the examples of the techniques an author uses to create a literary piece is the so-called uh, elements of the story. Same with the fictional stories, of course, nonfiction stories also uses elements to convey the story creatively. And we have here the list. Okay, so using Freytag's diagram, here's the plot of a story that might be familiar to you already. Of course, first here we have the exposition. So in exposition, it is where the author introduces the characters, of course, telling us their names, their characteristics, and they may also include their background stories. We can also see here the setting of the story. And of course, in giving the setting, you should not just state the place where it happens. You must also let your audience use their senses or perception. Let them see, let them feel, hear, and smell everything what's there in the setting of the story. Next is the rising action. Rising action is when the characters of the story start to experience conflicts. Of course, in writing a story, it is necessary to include conflicts as it will appear boring if the story revolves with happy experiences only. Readers enjoy reading stories that's with a touch of a roller coaster life events. Next is climax. Climax is the highest point of tension in the story. It's the jaw-dropping part. It's when you scream a lot because it is the moment the main character either reaches or fails to meet his or her goal. Like when a man is having an affair with another woman, will he be caught in the act by his wife or not? Will they succeed in hiding their relationship or not? That's the climax. Next is the falling action. It is the part of the story wherein the main character has been slowly resolving the conflict. Let's say the husband and wife have been starting to reconcile after an intense confrontation with the husband and the mistress. It's when, let's say, the wife has been slowly accepting the fact that she lacks something which led her husband to be attached to his mistress, or it's when the husband ended up marrying the mistress and leaving his wife happy with someone else already. Last is the resolution or denouement. It is the final scene in the story. It tells us how the story ended, of course. Like, for example, in the end of the story, the husband and the wife realized that they weren't happy with someone else and ended up living together again. So that's an example of denoma. Okay, and of course, as you can see, we have there also the theme. In every story, there's a theme. If the topic of the story we use here to explain the plot of the story is love, the theme should be the overall message of the story, and it is usually in a sentence form. Okay, so the topic is love, and the theme would be love is acceptance. It's about learning to accept the challenges and trials in a relationship, just like what the couple in the story did. Okay. And since creative nonfiction is as flexible as fiction in terms of being creative, the stories may also be written in a first person perspective if it's your own story, third person perspective if it's another person's story, and of course, second person perspective or point of view if it is conveyed using a dialogue or what they use in dramas, or if it is in a drama form. So, to wrap up the discussion about creative nonfiction, this is the goal of nonfiction. Okay, its goal is to communicate a bit of the real world, a personal experience, a scientific discovery, a history, a place, a person in a way that will seeing on the page, inform and change readers and make an impact. Okay, so just like what I've said, a story without a conflict is boring, or a speech that is delivered monotonously is boring. Therefore, to let your audience enjoy what they are reading or listening to, even if it's based on true stories, because there's a negative notion that true stories like historical events are, of course, boring to learn. So, to avoid that, why not let them taste different flavors out of your pieces? Let them experience a roller coaster ride of yours or someone else's life. Let them sway with you. Okay, so I hope you now understand what creative nonfiction is. For your activity, you need to watch the story of Pyramus and Thisbe through this link or using the link provided, and then film yourself while presenting the plot of the story by giving, of course, the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the denouement or resolution of the story. Okay, you can send your final output at my Gmail account, fasishinaadlock@gmail.com. Okay, thank you very much for listening and God bless.